I gave birth to my son with no one holding my hand. I raised him on prayers, overtime, and empty promises to myself. And when I got old, when my body slowed down, when I trusted him the most, he took my house, he emptied my accounts. He signed my name like it meant nothing. That night, I sat awake on the edge of my bed, shaking. In the next room, my son slept peacefully. No guilt, no fear. Like he'd done nothing wrong. This is not a story about money. It's about what happens when the child you protected becomes the one who destroys you. Asterisk. Welcome to Stories Her Heart Holds. This is the story of how my own son destroyed me and how I survived what he never lost sleep over. Asterisk. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe to Stories Her Heart Holds. These are the truths women carry quietly until now. Asterisk. I didn't scream when I saw the balance. I didn't cry either. I just stared at my phone while the number sat there, calm and final, like it had been waiting for me to notice. 0, not low, not pending, empty. Every dollar I saved across 4 decades was gone, and I knew before I checked anything else exactly who had done it. My son was asleep down the hall. I stood in the kitchen, barefoot on cold tile, refreshing the screen like a fool, telling myself it had to be a mistake, a glitch, anything but the truth pressing against my ribs. And when Signify nothing changed, I went to the drawer where I kept the house papers. The same drawer I had trusted for years. The same drawer I told myself was safe because family lived under. This roof, and when I opened it and saw nothing but dust and a bent paperclip, my hands finally started to shake. The folder was gone, not hidden, not moved. Gone. That's when the silence hit me. No slammed doors, no raised voices, no warning, just the quiet sound of my son breathing in his sleep, slow and even, like he had done something ordinary that day. Like he hadn't signed my name away, like he hadn't taken the house I paid for, the savings I scraped together, the future I was supposed to live in when my body finally gave up on working so hard. I leaned against the counter to keep from falling and realized the most terrifying part wasn't the loss. It was how carefully this had been done, how planned, how gentle the theft was, because this wasn't rage or impulse. This was patience. This was intention. This was a boy I raised learning exactly how to take from me without waking me up. I sat on the floor at 2 a.m, my back against the cabinet, my phone dead in my hand, listening to him sleep, and the thought that kept circling wasn't, how could he? It was, how long has he been doing this? Because people don't steal everything in one night unless they've been practicing for years. And that's when it landed in my chest like a stone, heavier than fear, heavier than anger. My son didn't take everything from me that night. Had already decided I was finished. Asterisk. Before anyone decides what kind of mother I was. Let me say this plainly, because women like me don't often get the chance to speak before judgment settles in. I did not drink. I did not gamble. I did not chase men or disappear for days. I did not leave my child hungry, unattended, or afraid. Everything I had went into keeping my son safe, warm, and loved. Even when it cost me pieces of myself, I never got back. I worked jobs that hurt my back and stole my sleep. I learned how to stretch one chicken into 3 meals, and how to smile at my son when the lights flickered because I wasn't sure the bill was paid. I stayed up nights sewing buttons back onto his shirts so he wouldn't feel different at school. I remember pretending not to be hungry so he could have seconds, pretending not to be tired so he could talk, pretending not to be scared so he could feel brave. That was my life for years, and I never complained because he was my reason and my reward. When his father left, I didn't tell my son the ugly truth. I swallowed it. I told him grown-up things sometimes fail and that love still exists. I protected his heart even when mine was breaking. because I believed a good mother shields her child from bitterness, and I thought that kindness would teach him kindness in return. I didn't know then that protection, when taken too far, can turn into permission. People like to say women like me spoil their sons, but what they really mean is we overcompensate for a world that already feels cruel, and I won't apologize for loving my child deeply. I hugged him when he cried. I listened. When he talked, I believed him when he said he was trying. And yes, maybe I made it too easy for him to lean on me, but leaning is not stealing. And trust is not an invitation to destroy someone. I taught him to say please and thank you. I taught him not to hit, not to lie, not to take what wasn't his. I taught him to respect women, starting with me. I believe those lessons stayed inside him, growing quietly, waiting to guide him when life got hard. And that belief is what makes this hurt so sharp, because the son who took everything from me is not the boy I raised, but he is the man my choices helped shape. That night, sitting alone on the kitchen floor, I replayed years of memories like evidence in a courtroom I never asked to enter, searching for the moment where I failed so badly that this outcome became inevitable. And the truth that frightened me most was not that I made mistakes, because all mothers do, but that my greatest mistake might have been loving without limits, giving without boundaries, and calling it sacrifice when it was slowly teaching him that I would always pay the price for his comfort. I was not careless. I was devoted. And sometimes, devotion is the most dangerous thing a woman can offer the wrong person. Asterisk. From the moment my son could walk, I felt that mix of pride and worry every mother knows. That there were little moments, tiny red flags I brushed off, thinking, he's just a kid. It started with the way he'd take things without asking, first a pencil, then my favorite sweater. I scolded him, but he just flashed that smile that made my heart melt, and I let it slide. School years only made it clearer. His teachers called me about his lies, how he'd shift blame to other kids, twist stories so well that I doubted my own instincts. I'd sit in the parent-teacher meetings, nodding, trying to see the good in him, convincing myself maybe he's just misunderstood. But deep down, a knot of worry was growing inside me, one I didn't dare voice. Teenage years brought more tension. Money disappearing from my purse, sudden excuses for failing grades, friends I barely knew. I'd ask, why are you lying? And he'd look at me like I was the one in the wrong. That's when I started realizing these weren't just mistakes, these were patterns. Patterns that would one day cost me everything I loved, every mother. Watching this will feel it, the quiet fear you try to ignore. That gut feeling telling you something's off. And yet, love blinds us. I ignored it, just as so many do, because we want to believe in the goodness of our children. But ignoring, it doesn't stop the damage. And that's exactly what my son would exploit years later. By the time he reached his early 20s, I should have known the signs were no longer just quirks of youth. The small lies had grown bolder. He started borrowing money and never returning it, promising to pay me back next week, week after. Week, I wanted to believe him because a mother's hope never dies. But the pattern was unmistakable, and each broken promise left a sting I tried to hide from friends and family. Then came the first real betrayal. He took something from me that couldn't easily be replaced, and he did it with a calm that froze me in place. I remember the exact moment I realized he wasn't careless, he wasn't confused, he was deliberate. That look in his eyes, the one I had seen flicker in childhood but dismissed, had returned full force. I confronted him, tried to reason, tried to remind him of everything I'd sacrificed, every lesson I had taught him. He smiled, shrugged, and walked away. That night, he slept peacefully, as if the weight of what he had done meant nothing. And that was when the fear sank in, the fear that the person I raised The person I loved more than life itself could betray me completely, every mother watching. This will know the feeling, the gut-wrenching mix of love, guilt, and disbelief when the child you nurtured becomes a stranger capable of unimaginable betrayal. And yet, this was only the beginning of what he had planned. Asterisk, it started subtly at first. "Mom, let me handle the bills this month. I'll organize everything," he said, smiling like he was doing me a favor. I hesitated, but trusted him. After all, he was grown now, and I wanted to believe he was responsible. That trust was the mistake that would cost me dearly. Soon, he was managing not just bills, but bank accounts, credit cards, even my investments. He convinced me I didn't need to worry, that he had everything under control. I told myself I was relieved. After years of struggle, I thought I could finally rest. But the relief was an illusion. It wasn't long before I realized money was disappearing. Small at first, almost imperceptible, then larger sums. When I questioned him, he deflected, blamed the bank, blamed mistakes, blamed me. I began to doubt myself, wondering if I had been careless. That's exactly what he wanted. He fed on my hesitation, my maternal instinct to protect him from shame. And it wasn't just money. He controlled who I could talk to, where I could go, even the decisions I thought were mine. Invitations to events I once loved were denied. Friends I had leaned on were subtly discouraged. He isolated me while keeping up a facade for everyone else, so no one would see what was happening. The worst part? Watching him sleep peacefully at night while I lay awake, heart pounded, knowing everything I had worked for, everything I had sacrificed, was slipping through my fingers. The betrayal wasn't just financial, it was deeply personal. He had taken my trust, my independence, and my peace of mind. Every mother will feel the ache here, the quiet terror that your child, the one you raised with love, could become the very thing that ruins you. And this is where most stories like mine take a turning point when denial finally ends and reality hits with full force. Asterisk, by now, the full weight of what he had done was crushing me. I was constantly anxious, jumping at the sound of his footsteps, afraid of what he would take or say next. Friends stopped calling. I began to cancel social plans because every interaction felt like an opportunity for him to manipulate or humiliate me. The isolation was deliberate, and I felt it seeping into every corner of my life. But even in the darkness, tiny sparks of resistance began to flicker. I started keeping small records notes, receipts, reminders of every time he lied or manipulated. At first, it felt hopeless, almost laughable. Could I alone really stand against someone who had learned to twist my love into weakness? And yet, that's when the first glimmers of strategy formed. I began noticing patterns, when he was careless, when he flaunted his control, the times he underestimated me. Each small observation was like a piece of a puzzle forming in my mind. I realized I didn't have to stay trapped. The emotional consequences were brutal sleepless nights, bouts of tears, and that constant gnawing fear, but I could no longer ignore that quiet voice saying, "You cannot let this continue. You deserve better. You're stronger than you think." Every mother watching this will relate to the mix of despair and determination, the moment when fear turns into clarity and a plan begins to form. And that plan, small at first, would set the stage for the battle. To reclaim what was taken, asterisk, I knew I couldn't confront him directly yet, not without proof. Every move had to be measured, every action deliberate. So I began quietly documenting everything: bank statements, missing receipts, suspicious transactions. I took photos of papers he claimed I had misplaced, recorded conversations when possible, and kept a hidden journal of incidents. Too small for anyone else to notice, but significant to me. It felt like walking a tightrope. I had to act like everything was normal around him, smile when he smiled, nod when he said everything was fine, all while secretly building the arsenal I would need to reclaim my life. The emotional strain was immense, but the thought of taking that control gave me a strange growing sense of power. I also began reaching out subtly. Old friends I had drifted from, distant family members, anyone who could help me understand what I was dealing with, anyone who could support me if the confrontation escalated. I had to prepare not just legally and financially, but emotionally. I knew he was clever, manipulative, and one wrong move could destroy any hope of justice. For every mother watching this, you'll recognize the courage it takes to quietly plan against someone you once trusted with your heart. It's terrifying, exhausting, and yet necessary. This was the first time I truly felt that the tide might be turning, even if just slightly in my favor. Asterisk, the first signs were subtle, almost laughable if it weren't so painful. He'd fumble numbers while showing me a bank statement, forget to hide receipts properly, or give an answer that didn't quite match reality. At first, I questioned myself, was I reading too much into it, letting my paranoia run wild? But the more I observed, the more the pieces fell into place. It was a mix of relief and disbelief. Relief because he wasn't perfect, he wasn't untouchable. Disbelief because the betrayal ran so deep that I had never imagined I could see these cracks. Each mistake he made was like a tiny window opening, giving me a glimpse of how vulnerable he truly was. I began using those cracks strategically. I asked questions casually, observed reactions, and quietly recorded inconsistencies. Even his tone, the way he avoided eye contact, the small hesitations, it all became evidence in my mind. Slowly, the control he had over me felt less absolute. For every mother watching this, you'll understand the mix of fear and hope. Seeing the person who hurt you start to reveal weakness, realizing that justice, even if delayed, is possible. This was the first glimmer that the battle for my life, my dignity, and my future could be won. Asterisk, by now, I felt a quiet determination I hadn't known in years. The cracks in his facade were small, but they were enough to give me courage. I started testing him in subtle ways, asking questions about finances I already knew the answers to, leaving small amounts of cash unaccounted for, and observing how he reacted when I probed gently but persistently. The results were telling. He stumbled over lies, tried to deflect blame, and for the first time, I saw frustration creep into his calm exterior. He thought he had me trapped, but I would continue to play the part of the compliant, trusting mother. But with each test, I chipped away at the illusion of his control. It wasn't just about catching him, it was about reclaiming my own power. Every small victory reminded me that I could act, that I could push back, and that I wasn't helpless. His mistakes became my ammunition, his lies my roadmap to uncover the truth he wanted hidden. For any mother watching this, you'll know the mix of fear and satisfaction in seeing someone who betrayed you finally reveal the truth, almost against their will. Each misstep he made was another step toward regaining everything I had lost. As I continued observing, testing, and documenting, the pieces finally came together. It wasn't just money he had taken, though the financial damage alone was staggering. It was my trust, my independence, and my sense of safety. Every lie, every manipulation, every subtle control tactic suddenly painted a clear picture. He had been systematically dismantling my life for years. Old receipts, bank statements, and hidden records revealed the pattern. What I had once considered isolated incidents were part of a carefully orchestrated plan. The amount of money missing, the decisions he had influenced, the friendships he had quietly severed, all of it was part of the same betrayal. I felt anger, grief, and disbelief all at once. How could someone I loved so deeply plan such devastation? And yet, amidst the emotional storm, clarity emerged. I knew now exactly what I was up against. His manipulations were clever, but not perfect. There were gaps I could exploit. There were mistakes I could use to reclaim what was mine. From others watching this, you'll feel the gut punch of realizing the truth about someone you trusted completely. It's painful, almost unbearable, but it's also the moment when you finally see the path forward, and the fight to reclaim your life begins in earnest. Asterisk, once I had a clear picture of the betrayal, I knew it wasn't enough to wait or hope he would change. I had to act, and carefully. My first step was legal. I contacted a lawyer I trusted, someone who understood not just the financial aspects, but the emotional manipulation at play. I shared everything: documents, records, and detailed notes of every incident. It felt surreal, almost like I was preparing for battle against my own child. But I knew it was necessary. At the same time, I began strategizing. I couldn't confront him recklessly. He was manipulative, and one misstep could undo months of careful planning. I mapped out each step: the conversations I needed to have, the evidence I had to present, the witnesses I could quietly line up. Every small move was calculated to ensure I retained control. It was empowering. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of agency return. He had stolen so much from me, but I wasn't helpless anymore. I was reclaiming my voice, my authority, and my life. I learned quickly that courage alone wasn't enough. Precision, patience, and persistence were just as vital. For any mother watching this, you'll understand the mix of fear and determination. Taking action against someone you raised is terrifying, but when done strategically, it's also the first real step toward freedom. The fight to reclaim your life begins not with confrontation, but with preparation, and that's exactly what I had done. Asterisk, the day came when I could no longer remain silent. Armed with evidence, preparation, and a newfound sense of authority, I confronted him, not with anger, but with calm, deliberate questions. Where is this money? Why did you lie about these transactions? I asked, holding up the documents. That had taken me months to gather. At first, he tried his usual tactics: deflection, charm, excuses. But I stayed steady, unwavering. Each inconsistency I pointed out chipped away at his facade. His confidence, once unshakable, began to falter. I saw the flicker of fear in his eyes, the hesitation in his voice, the cracks that had been invisible to me for years suddenly opening wide. He grew defensive, then frustrated, then angry, but never convincingly. He had been so used to manipulating me that he didn't expect resistance, and yet resistance is powerful. Each calm, factual statement I made forced him to confront the truth he had tried so hard to hide. For any mother watching this, you'll recognize the rush of validation, the moment when the person who betrayed you begins to lose the control they held for so long. It's a mixture of fear, relief, and growing strength. That's when the shift happens. The one who once dominated the relationship begins to crumble under the weight of their own deceit. Asterisk, after the initial confrontation, he was visibly unsettled. His usual calm demeanor was replaced with tension and defensive outbursts. I stayed composed, refusing to let his anger rattle me. Each time he tried to twist the situation, I countered with facts, records, and clear boundaries. Slowly, I saw him retreat, realizing he could no longer manipulate or intimidate me as he had for years. The next step was reclaiming what he had taken. I began taking control of finances, piece by piece, transferring accounts back under my name, setting up safeguards, and monitoring transactions closely. It was painstaking work, but every small victory brought a sense of freedom I hadn't felt in years. At the same time, I reclaimed my personal decisions. Invitations to social events, visits with friends and family, even daily routines, he no longer dictated them. It felt like breathing after being underwater for years. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving, I was taking my life back. For mothers watching this, you'll understand the emotional mix, relief, pride, and lingering pain. Reclaiming control is never easy, especially from someone you once trusted completely. But with patience, evidence, and steady determination, it's possible to turn the tables and restore both dignity and independence. Asterisk, once I had regained some control over my finances and daily life, I realized it wasn't enough to confront him alone. The isolation he had created was part of his power. To truly reclaim my life, I needed allies, trusted family members, friends, anyone who could witness the truth. I started sharing pieces of the story carefully, showing records, inconsistencies, and documented incidents to those I trusted most. At first, they were shocked, some even reluctant to believe the extent of his deceit. But as the evidence mounted, disbelief turned into outrage and support. People who had once dismissed my fears began to see what I had endured. The effect on him was immediate. His confidence cracked further when he realized others could see through his lies. He tried to explain away or downplay incidents, but the corroborating evidence from multiple sources left him with no room to maneuver. From others watching this, you'll recognize the power of community and accountability. Isolation strengthens manipulation, but exposing the truth carefully, strategically can strip away that control. It's not just about evidence. It's about reclaiming your voice and making the world see what was hidden behind the facade. Asterisk, as the truth spread. Among family and friends, I noticed the first signs of panic in him. The calm, confident demeanor he had maintained for years was gone. His voice trembled when he spoke, his excuses became frantic, and even small mistakes he had previously hidden were now exposed. I stayed steady. Every time he tried to intimidate or manipulate me, I responded with facts and evidence. Every lie he attempted to spin was dismantled calmly, step by step. It was empowering to watch someone who once held complete control now struggle under the weight of their own deception. Meanwhile, my life began to shift. Financial control, personal freedom, and social connections, all that he had disrupted, were slowly being restored. Each small victory reinforced my confidence and resilience. I realized that the fear and isolation he had imposed could no longer hold me back. For any mother watching, you'll recognize that moment when the abuser's panic becomes your leverage. That's when the scales truly begin to tip, and the fight to reclaim your life transitions from survival to empowerment. Asterisk, by this stage, I knew partial victories weren't enough. If I wanted to protect myself permanently, I had to take decisive, irreversible steps. I worked with my lawyer to formalize financial safeguards, ensuring he could no longer access accounts, property, or assets. Every loose end he could exploit was tied up, every vulnerability addressed. At the same time, I rebuilt my personal life. Friends I had distanced myself from came back into my world, family relationships were mended, and I began making decisions based solely on what was right for me, not what he demanded. Each step reinforced my autonomy and reminded me that I was no longer living under fear or manipulation. He tried to regain influence, subtlety at first, then more aggressively, but by now I had anticipated each tactic. Every attempt he made to reassert control was met with preparedness, evidence, and unwavering boundaries. For the first time, I felt completely untouchable in my own life. From others watching this, it's a powerful lesson. Reclaiming independence isn't just about winning battles, it's about removing the possibility of future control, building safeguards, and restoring your life on your own terms. With the battle largely behind me, I finally had space to feel not just relief, but the weight of everything I had endured. There was grief for the trust lost, anger for the betrayal, and shame for moments I had doubted myself. But alongside these feelings was an unexpected sense of strength and clarity. I reflected on the lessons this painful journey had taught me. I learned the importance of listening to my instincts, of documenting and safeguarding my life, and of setting boundaries that no one, even my own child, could cross. I realized that love doesn't mean blind trust. It means holding both your heart and your life with care. The transformation was profound. I was no longer just a mother trying to survive a betrayal. I was a woman who had reclaimed her power, her dignity, and her voice. Every small act of courage, every piece of evidence gathered, every confrontation endured had reshaped me into someone resilient, vigilant, and uncheckable. For mothers watching this, you'll recognize the duality of pain and empowerment. Surviving betrayal doesn't erase the hurt, but it can ignite a transformation that makes you stronger than you ever imagined possible. With control regained and independence secured, I focused on rebuilding the parts of my life that had been neglected or damaged. Old friendships, strained by years of isolation and manipulation, were slowly restored. I nurtured family bonds that had been frayed, sharing my experiences honestly to create understanding and support. I also rebuilt my own routines and passions things I had abandoned when fear dominated my days. Simple joys like morning walks, reading, and reconnecting with hobbies reminded me of who I truly was beyond the role of a mother under siege. Trust, once shattered, was cautious but present. I learned to give it carefully, guided by wisdom earned through pain. The betrayal remained a part of my story, but it no longer defined me. Each restored relationship, each regained moment of peace, was a testament to resilience and the possibility of reclaiming joy even after profound hurt. For any mother watching this, the lesson is clear. Healing is not instantaneous, but rebuilding your life with awareness, care, and selective trust is not only possible, it's transformative. A moment of final closure arrived carefully, with preparation and calm resolve. I confronted him one last time, not with anger, but with clarity and authority. I laid out every deceit, every manipulation, every act of betrayal, backed by the evidence I had meticulously gathered. He couldn't deflect this time. The lies, excuses, and charm had no power left. I watched him squirm as the truth confronted him head on, seeing for the first time the consequences of every action he thought would go unnoticed. Accountability, once distant and abstract, was now immediate and unavoidable. In that moment, something shifted, not just in him, but in me. I felt the final weight lift from my shoulders. The cycle of manipulation was broken. I was free, empowered, and no longer defined by the betrayal of someone I had once trusted above all else. For mothers watching, this moment is a reminder. Closure doesn't come from revenge or punishment, but from standing firm, demanding accountability, and reclaiming your own life. Only then can the past stop controlling the present. Looking back on everything, the betrayal, the manipulation, the fear, and the fight, I see a journey that tested me in ways I never imagined. I lost trust, independence, and years of peace. But I also discovered strength I didn't know I had. Every small step, every careful decision, every moment of courage led me to a place of freedom and clarity. The lessons are clear. Trust your instincts, protect your life and assets, and never let fear or love blind you to reality. Boundaries aren't signs of weakness, they are shields of self-respect. And even in the face of the deepest betrayal, it's possible to reclaim your dignity, independence, and joy. Most importantly, hope remains. I now live with a sense of empowerment and resilience that carries me forward, and I want other mothers to know they can survive and thrive, even after someone they loved most turned against them. Betrayal may leave scars, but it doesn't define the rest of your life. You can reclaim it, piece by piece, stronger than ever before. For anyone watching, remember this. The darkest trials can reveal your inner strength, and your story doesn't end with betrayal. It begins with the courage to rise again.